like clock. I can't stop. Fuck around, make my 40 pop.
The story of how Kawaki got his karma seal is super unique. Even though we don't really know exactly all about the karma seal and exactly how people actually get the karma seal, we just know that Kawaki's circumstance is extremely unique. First things first, it starts off with Kawaki being in an abusive relationship with his father. At this particular point, he pretty much sold Kawaki to Isshiki, a literal Otsutsuki member. And not only that, the father was absolutely happy to sell Kawaki off. He's like, yo, all I have to do is give you this child and you'll give me all this money. Bet. But real quick, just to explain the karma seal for a second, the karma seal is basically like a trump card for Otsutsuki members. They use it to pretty much become immortal. If an Otsutsuki member dies in their original body and they've actually given someone a karma seal, then they can resurrect into that body. Now specifically, the karma seal actually has to mature all the way up to 100% in the person that they actually gave the karma seal to. Now that person right there is specifically known as a vessel. If the karma seal isn't 100% matured into the vessel, then the Otsutsuki member cannot resurrect himself. But if it is 100% matured, then the Otsutsuki member can actually resurrect himself in the body of the vessel. Stay with me. Kawaki in his circumstance got his karma seal through a test tube. Kawaki was one of 15 experiments that Isshiki, Otsutsuki, and Amado went through to basically give someone a karma seal. Kawaki specifically was the 14th experiment. And of course, Kawaki being the 14th experiment, that means there were 13 failures. Now, we don't really know if all the other 13 people actually died, but Amado actually did say that he lost count of the people who actually died. So obviously, there were some deaths. We don't really know what happened to the 15th experiment. This particular video, he's a non-factor. But regardless, Kawaki actually got the karma seal from that experiment. And obviously, going into this experiment, Kawaki was scared to death. Like, he didn't know if he's gonna die or not. One thing that we know for absolute certain is the fact that Jigen actually needed a new vessel. Amado even asked Jigen, like, are we gonna stop Milan because there were some casualties, like we actually killed people? Jigen completely didn't care. He was like, yo, you can stop, I'm not stopping. The experiments might have actually also taken place in the Hidden Rain Village, ironically a place that Naruto swore to pain that he probably fixed. Turns out that he didn't really fix it. Now we have the Kata organization running extremely insane experiments on little kids and giving them karma seals. Now we don't really know if this is for sure, but in the previous anime arc, Sai and Sasuke went to the Hidden Rain Village and they seen very similar things to what we've seen in the manga, specifically in chapter 27, and Sasuke said that it looks like live experiments were taking place right then and there. Sasuke as a kid spent 3 years with Orochimaru, and Orochimaru himself did a lot of live experiments with kids as well. One of the more important things to know is that giving a karma seal to someone else should not require a test tube. For example, the first time that we did see an instance of this was when an Otsutsuki member gave Boruto a karma seal, and that did not take a test tube at all. In fact, it actually took place when the Otsutsuki member was literally about to die. Like, it took no time at all, and Boruto immediately got the karma seal. But regardless, in this particular situation, even though we know a lot of the circumstances surrounding Kawaki actually getting the karma seal, there is still a lot of things that we don't necessarily know. For example, was the experiment necessary to actually give someone a karma seal, or was the experiment necessary to ensure that the quote-unquote vessel will be able to handle Isshiki completely resurrecting? For example, in the body of Jigen, Isshiki is essentially trapped, man, because if he does fully resurrect into the body of Isshiki, he will essentially die in a couple of days because the body of Jigen is just not equipped to handle that much power. But with the body of Kawaki, we were told in the manga, Kawaki is actually equipped to handle Isshiki resurrecting in his own body. Otsutsuki members in the body of a vessel has to do a lot more extra things to get what they want done. The example I brought up was an Otsutsuki member pretty much just flat out giving Boruto a karma seal. In this particular situation, it's possible that Isshiki couldn't really do that mainly because he was in the body of a character who was not necessarily an Otsutsuki member, quote unquote, and because of that, he had to go through this very elaborate experiment. Another good example of this is Isshiki using one of his patented moves when he's in battle. The thing that he does is shrink things down to an extremely small size and pops them up to regular size in an instant. When Isshiki was in the body of his vessel, which is Jigen, it seemed like it was more difficult for him to complete that task. It seemed like he had to use up a substantial amount of chakra, but when Isshiki actually fully resurrected, all he had to do was glance at something and then it would automatically shrink. Again, things are just much more easier in the body of an Otsutsuki member. But the reason that I and multiple other people believe that this experiment was not just to actually give someone a karma seal, was possibly to just ensure that the person would actually be able to survive after they do actually get the karma seal, is because Isshiki as of right now is completely dead set on Kawaki. If you guys are not necessarily kept up with the Boruto manga, Isshiki, spoiler alert, Isshiki actually did revive in the body of Jigen, and the only thing that he wants to do right now is get to Kawaki to pretty much implant him with the karma seal again. He wasn't necessarily 100% sure that Kawaki could actually handle Isshiki being fully reborn into that body. It wouldn't necessarily matter who Isshiki gave the karma seal to. For example, he's about to go through like 2 god level creatures just to get to Kawaki. If it was not for that, he'd probably just be able to go to any random ninja and just give them the karma seal, and then he'd pretty much be guaranteed to resurrect into that body. That's not the case. Another interesting question is, why did Isshiki Otsutsuki need 1,000 years to just complete this process? A bit of backstory and full disclaimer, this next sentence requires a full-blown video, but bear with me. Over 1,000 years ago, Isshiki Otsutsuki himself actually gave Jigen the karma seal, which basically means that Isshiki Otsutsuki himself spent 1,000 years in the body of Jigen and just did not resurrect himself. Now specifically, Isshiki Otsutsuki was kind of injured, so he didn't necessarily immediately implant the karma seal into Jigen, but one can possibly assume that you don't necessarily need more than a year to recover and actually implant someone with the karma seal. So regardless, let's just say over 1,000 years he gave Jigen the karma seal. Why did it take over 1,000 years for him to then attempt to find another vessel? That makes me think that Isshiki Otsutsuki actually needed technology to give someone a karma seal if he was actually in the body of a character like Jigen. As I said before, it takes substantially a longer time to do things in the body of a vessel than it is in the body of an actual Otsutsuki member. So because of that, he possibly couldn't have given anybody else a karma seal until he met the scientist Amato, and Amato had all of the technology for Isshiki Otsutsuki to give someone a karma seal. And we already know that Isshiki Otsutsuki, much like the Otsutsuki member that gave Boruto the karma seal, Isshiki Otsutsuki definitely had the ability to just give someone a karma seal, mainly because he just gave Jigen, which is his current vessel, a karma seal, or which was his past vessel, a karma seal, before he actually did resurrect himself into the body of Jigen. But I want to know what you guys think about this in the comment section below. Do you guys actually think that the experiment was to actually give someone a karma seal, no matter if the person was actually an adequate vessel, or do you guys think that the experiment itself was just to determine who actually was going to be an adequate vessel? Again, there are 15 total experiments. Kawaki was the 14th one. It could have possibly been a situation where the first 13 died, mainly because they weren't necessarily adequate vessels for the body of Isshiki Otsutsuki, and Isshiki Otsutsuki was trying to find something permanent and not something temporary like the body of Jigen, even though he did kind of spend 1,000 years into the body of Jigen. But let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section below. It's me, your boy Baara B, and we out.
It's a knife.